guys. Record starter. So yeah, here we go. Yeah, just really, it was really enjoyable yesterday. Really felt stimulated, and it's nice to share, and also just learning from everybody else out there. And Kat's presentation at one stage, I thought he was on my slideshow. You know, he was it was really exciting to see those oaks attacking space with their feet, and yeah, just the ability to look for spaces. So fantastic. So yeah, today is a little bit more about roles on attack. And the reason why I wanted to kind of bring this to the party is often, like we say, we're creating mismatches, we're creating turnover ball, and then it's on, but then the wrong player gets the ball in hand, or we got the guy stacked 5 on the edge versus 2, and somehow the tight head prop gets it, and all of a sudden, yeah, he carries. So in any case, so I think once we get a bit more detail, and doesn't have to be an exact science, but ideally what I try and do with my boys is I try to like give them roles, because if we see on the slide, we obviously got our primary roles and we've got our functional roles and that, but for me, there's also an attack role, which speaks more to the character of the position and the player. So sometimes your hooker might be of a certain characteristic, so you might become a different player in your attack role, in your attack structure. So what I try and do is I try to like not be too descriptive, but what happens when you do bounce between 1-3-3-1 and 2-4-2 and whatever for a power play, it's often good to know what your roles are and what the strength of that player is, and making sure that he uses it. So we'll just quickly run through them. There could be other names to these kind of roles, but when you're coaching and when players are looking to get involved in the game, if you say, Licia, as a bump runner, for instance, I'm not looking for you to stand at fly off. So when the ball's going, you coming off 9, you're looking for those cracks in the wall. So whenever anything happens, even on the blind, he might find himself on the blind, bang, then he just comes off 9, and it's role play. So let's just quickly have a look at that. Just going to bump around a bit. So bump runner is obviously a big carry focus. He looks for cracks in the wall, mostly working between the 15s and playing off 9 or 10. So that could be your locks, your tight 5 mostly. You don't want them too deep. You want them nice and flat. It's kind of in that first line of attack. Obviously, the modern game is, you know, obviously guys are playing with stacked attacks and that, so you can't have these guys playing centers, you know, as much as they do want to play. And then we've got strikers. Obviously, guys with X factor that can finish, looking for opportunities to get into space. They're roaming the field like Messi, looking for opportunities. And I think we'll see. And we spoke about it yesterday with Corambetti and a couple of the guys that do get the ball often. I wish Colby would play that role a little bit more often as well, and that's why I sometimes thought, geez, he'd be great for us at fullback, because it kind of opens up the field on both sides for him. But that's obviously just my opinion. But strikers, so they've got a role to play, so I don't want my striker just sitting out wide. Distributors, those are your game drivers, that make the decisions. They control the tempo and the territory. They drive the game plan for you in terms of, you know, if you don't have momentum. So they base a lot of their kind of mindset around, do we have momentum? Let it go. What are the options available to me? So the game drivers. Then we got the creators, and they could form part of the game drivers as well. But these are the creators and link men, guys that make things happen around them. They've got the ability to use those bump runners as guys going hard to the line. They can use them as just carrying off them. But they essentially control the flow. What often happens in the game is that the fly-off makes the decision, and the creator doesn't really want the ball, or he doesn't want to go wide, because the pitch has changed very quickly, as it does in rugby. 5-on-3 quickly becomes a 5-on-4, and that might be a different kind of option that you want to take. Then we've got the punch guys, the bus runners. These are your big carriers and the wider channels. They're sitting outside the pods mostly, looking for those soft seams we spoke about yesterday. and they also create pressure on the holes and those wider channels or wherever the holes are. And often, like I said, the default for us would be, unless he's in a hole, we are playing, our default is playing the space. But these guys are looking to run at the defense. If there's no holes, they make holes. So I put a picture of Damien and Jesse Creel and there as well. So just interesting how we perceive them. If we had to say, Lucia, if you find yourself in a certain place on the field, what do we want from you? I think, in my personal opinion, and maybe we can have a bit of a discussion, Jesse Creel to me is also a very powerful punch runner, bus runner, a guy that he's not going to create a lot around him. So you don't want him essentially organizing attack around him, but you want guys like for me is more of a creator. Damien Delente, in my opinion, is a world-class center, world-class, and he's got the ability to organize, to punch, to do so much. But I do think when he does play that role in the box, it's very much a carry role. So if I just go back to like Jean de Villiers, for instance, Owen Farrell, if he plays at 12 for England, Henny LaRue when he played for the box, Mike Catt for England. I'm just talking about Walter Little. Names are just coming out of my head. And a really good quality attack when you've got those creators. Or even an 8, like a Warren Whiteley that understands, what needs to happen. Your flow of your game is just so much better. So, and I do believe that the Allende can play that role, like John de Villiers did for a couple of years. Pressure on holes. Okay, so I'll get back to that slide now. Any questions so far, gents? We good? Hello?
Yes, Hein has a question.
Yes.
So, Clinty,
yes.
You touched on Damien there.
Yeah.
When he was at school, his distribution to both sides was, this kid can pass the ball halfway past the rugby field, flat.
Yes.
Do you pick that role that suits the player, or, for instance, you say he's doing a carrying role for the box, but is that best? Is that best for him? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
How do
I
you
understand exactly what you're saying. The thing is, he's such a quality centre because he can carry his distribution. I can remember Hein brought him to Hammies as a youngster, and the first time I was in the midfield with him, and the first time he touched the ball and passed it, I knew that this guy wasn't going to stay there for long. He's going to be something special. And he's got the ability to step into space and offload. He's very much the complete player. I think in New Zealand he would have dominated. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that can play that role, distributing, and what makes that kind of player so much more effective is that he'll come to the line, but he can also hit the wider space, and that's a very dangerous thing to have in your attacking arsenal. So you've got to use the guys. Hein, if I can ask you a question, you've got to use the strength of the player, and obviously it's around your plan or your strategy. But I sometimes feel maybe we don't always see the best of him. When he's in the box jersey, and he's got a lot of criticism for the way that he plays. But I do think there's a bit more to the strategy of the box.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, because it's interesting if you assign these roles, because it's amazing how this links to what I want to talk about later this afternoon, is that when you assign these roles to these players, do you then, does the number on the back really matter?
No.
That type of thing.
Yeah, no, it's in their DNA. It's their sweet spot. It's their circus trick, like Sway says. It's like a Jesse Creel, for instance. You want to make sure that he's just coming hard and he's busting lines, and that's when Jesse Creel is at his best. But a guy like Damien, that's why I'll put him in the creator role.
Okay.
It's because he can make things happen around him, and all he needs to do is to tell the bump runner, he just tell Kitsy, go hard, boom, and he slides him behind his back, and next minute it's a half break and so forth.
Right, thank you.
So just quickly on the edge, So we got this almost again, like these guys play a very good like 2-4-2, and they interchange in their role play. But I just quickly wanted to highlight, like for instance, the guy in the blue with the blue circle here, that's the guy we kind of call an Ike runner. He's a guy that's worked hard from the far side, and he's going to either come to 9 or he's going to be inside 10, but he's working hard to create that inside option for, like we said, in terms of those strikers. So generally he will be a winger, a fullback. If he knows it's not coming right, it's going to go there, he makes sure that he becomes an option. So when those cracks in the walls present themselves, or 9 picks up, he becomes very much alive. So in a general setup for me, and I'd like some input here, how do you guys normally like to stack your attacking structure here? For me, normally I go backline player, distributor. I'll go creator, who's also a backline player. Then I go forward, a forward there, and then a striker, if possible, with a forward out wide. And the reason for that is because obviously I want this guy to be obviously creating, but also have the ability to get the ball to the striker. That if the space is good, and if the space is not good, then we've got our carrier. But yeah, there's, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. But when you watch the coaching video a little bit later, you'll see what I try and do is I try and set it up so that the guys go to certain spaces that will enhance their role, if that makes sense. Anybody wants some feedback? Give me some feedback on if they kind of stack it like that as well.
Clinton, us for instance, we go distributor,
yeah,
forward runner,
yeah,
and then a back. So always want that forward runner to run short, holding that third defender if you can.
Yes.
And then either if the third defender goes, or if he holds the third defender or not, if the seam, the crack is there, you play him. Yeah. Otherwise, you play behind his back, and then you've created space on the outside by holding the first 3 defenders.
Yeah. No, Alicia, that's a fantastic option, because what it brings in is when your distributor runs swivels off 9.
Yeah.
To really hold that defensive line, and he comes hard on that line in the seam. It's very, very effective. And like we said, we spoke about Swice's attack in the 2015 season, and that little wrap with the 9 is it's deadly, absolutely deadly. And if you've got the right guys running off that, it is very effective. The other question I wanted to ask, so like if you guys coach your boys, those guys running the hard lines and then the decision makers, who do you play? Do you play the guy in the hole, or do you play in behind his back? Because that's quite an interesting way of coaching it, and I've got some theory around that. So for me, let me start it off. I always say to the guys, our default is the space, the ball in behind. I don't want guys to come to the line and say, I'm either going to play him or I'm going to play him. He's coming to the line knowing that he's playing the ball in the space. But if his skills are good and the opportunity presents itself, and if that hole opens up, then he plays the short runner. But often we get guys coming to the line and they're not sure if they're going to play short or in behind. For me, I coach the boys, default is always in behind. But as they develop, when that hole opens up, it's bingo, and the boys are in the hole. Just some thoughts around that, gents.
Yeah, Clinny, I have, maybe it sounds similar, but I think it's a little bit of a different view. So for my guys, it's always hole first, because if we're looking for space, for me, that short runner, if he has that soft shoulder, a little bit of space, that's the easiest space to get into. If we play out the back, there's always the possibility of the pass being too deep, and then the player must catch it behind his back, or it's a poor pass, or the guys can rush and they can take away their space, or the quality of the movement of the player. There's just more margin for error when we go out the back. So the easiest space to hit is our default. So that would be, if there is a crack in the wall, I'd rather let them hit that, get over the advantage line, and then it gets easier to go wide.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100% with you, and that's when we play in the pods, and your lead runner is playing, and he's got to decide between tipping it on or playing the connector or the trigger, we tend to want to play the tip rather. And if there's really space and the call's nice and early, then we look to play the trigger. But I agree with you in that scenario. Let's play the space next to you. But in this scenario is when guys are coming on those hard lines from out to in, or the scrum off and the fly have run a little swivel, and somebody's coming just hard. I see a lot of teams always playing that hard runner, and that guy's sometimes isolated, or because he's run such a good line, he's got two guys tackling him properly. And often that space that he created by coming hard is negated. So yeah, that's just kind of like my thoughts around my default space. Obviously, we spoke about space quite a bit yesterday. And like I say, for me, in this scenario, for instance, yes, I'm so bad with names. What is this big winger from Crusaders? Ndolo, yeah. So he most probably will run a hole in any case. But if it was one of our boys, I would rather have him run as hard, commit those two defenders, and then there's a lot of space on that edge.
Okay, Clint, Van, we have a comment from Clinton.
Yes, Clinty.
Clint, how's it, man? Yeah, just for me, I think the big thing is depending on if you've identified weakness in their defensive structure. I think if they have a poor defender that might be in that wall that you talk about, that you look to play that. And then obviously also you play against certain teams where you know their strength. Maybe they've got heavy forwards and you want to chase them around a little bit. So you then rather use the backdoor option to get into those wider channels to chase them a bit, you know. So I think that's probably the way I would look at it.
Okay. No, it's like I said, for any fly-off in that position, and that's why New Zealand and Barnum Barrett and those guys are so comfortable coming to the line, because they're coming to the line with options. And that's a great thing to do. So always somebody running that inside line, so he can really attack that space between him and the defense, because he knows he's got options to play. Cool. Just want to quickly, I'll get back to that. Okay, so yeah, just one. Also, just guys that are in an attacking formation now. That's a little blind that became available. So we spoke about a player that I call like as a Nemo, the forward here. So when 9 picks up and there's space in the blind, I think the guys sometimes call it a pink. So what will happen is that if 9 hears pink, he knows that there's going to be somebody coming short. Like we said with the fly from the earlier slide, as soon as a playmaker is carrying a bit of ball, you need somebody to come to his shoulder. So he's got options. And in this scenario here, this player didn't stand out as a fly-off or as a first receiver in that. He is known as a guy that's going to come hard and play and try and punch into those holes. So that gives your guys that are making decisions such like a freedom to make sure that they pick up and come to that line with confidence. Okay, so just going to look at coaching carrying off 9. We spoke briefly about it yesterday. Let's very important that we arrive here. There's like nothing. Arrive here. So what I'm trying to say to the guys as we build into this is that you're arriving with a role, to obviously the role that you need to play. You've got the number one for us. He kind of like sets the depth and the width of the pod, and he also is looking to carry in that when 9 picks up that he becomes alive in terms of a carrier. But his role is essentially to get the depth and get the width right for us, and then the rest will follow. Role is 1, I'm holding depth, and if 9 picks up, I often become alive. Okay, then I can hit those holes. If there's a hole there, I just say to him, bingo, and I carry into that hole. Okay. All about just identifying space.
Can you explain this, please, again?
5, all 3 up. 2, you back. 1, very back. You back. Just come directly into your channel. Channel 1, 2, 3. The last channel is not available now. Come inside. Okay, ready? Some funky music there. Okay, you'll see me in the background holding up 2 fingers and a yellow cone. So it's just kind of where I want the space to be, and if it's an aggressive line or a soft line, a soft wall or a soft line, yeah. Place in the middle. Bingo call, saw it, so it came off. So in that last picture, it was a good line. The ball was slow. That's the kind of picture I wanted to show them. So that's a definite carry, fast feet fend, and we're just looking to get momentum. I think got a lot of guys coaching under 14, 15, 16, wherever. How often do we get the guy running on pillar and post and running, meeting the defensive line, receiving a slippery wet ball from a scrum off, bulleting it at him, and then he's either gets hit back, loses the ball, and we don't get any momentum. So for us in that situation there, we want to make sure that if it's slow, we want to have a good carry so we can get at least a meter or 2 with a nice leg drive and make sure we get some momentum back instead of guys running there just because they want to run off 9 and trying to be the big peanut in the packet, and then they get smashed. So these are under 16 boys. The tip opened up, boom. I want to keep this ball loaded. Keep this ball loaded and really attack the shield, and then the tip is going to be on my hip here. Okay. I don't want to see this when we're stopping early and making this pass. I'm attacking this defender, and it's going to be there. Okay, so I catch it, I keep the ball loaded. Okay. Last 2, then the swap. Yeah, they are kind of just talk about a loaded carry, and the British and Irish Lions do it brilliantly. They come to the line with venom, so they really attack that defender with the loaded ball, and it's really the tip is on the hip, and so I don't want my ball carrier to worry about where the tip runner is going to go. If he gets the call that the tip is on, he knows he attacks as hard as he can, and he plays that tip because he knows exactly where the guy's going to be.
1, 2, 1. There we go. Good stuff, Sharif. Looking for that fast speed fend on the carry. Ready?
I don't know. It sounds like the sound is a bit out of sync.
No, it's fine, Clinton. The sound just catches up with the picture. As long as the picture is fine, we're good.
Yeah, we're just practicing mechanics and lingo. Just guys understanding their roles, where they need to, which defenders. Because I asked my number 1 to line up. I asked my 1 to try and line up outside the second defender, the post, because if 9 is going to pick up, he's going to try and attack that second defender on the inside, and that often opens the hole for 1. Okay, I think that's it. Any questions on that? Any remarks? Any things that you guys do? Is there anything that you guys do that could be? All good?
Yeah, there seems to be nothing, Clinton. I think you can go on.
Okay, no, classic. Okay, and then on the edge, getting into those roles, making sure that we understand what we're trying to do, depending on the picture, and also just depending on what your role is in that kind of defensive, attacking structure. So in that situation, I've put cones yellow and red. So obviously the yellow cones, they're very narrow. Sometimes they'll go into the red cone, and I'll manipulate the numbers as well. There could be only 3 guys on the yellow, 1 on the red, or whatever the case is. So just trying to show them different pictures, and then they've just got to execute their role. Trying to hit the striker early.
What's the colour, Jim? Go hard.
These guys are reloading the edge.
Nice, there we go. Perfect. 2 more, then we're done. 2 more. Don't get wide. Nice, good space. Lovely.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's the attacking roles on the edge, and it's the carrying of 9. So yeah, that's I do find when we often get those situations presented to us, our ability to, like we said yesterday, I think Clinton mentioned it or somebody mentioned it, how important it is that the communication comes from outside. I just want to see there. I think there was a little bit more on that slide that I don't know why it's finished. Just want to quickly see here.
What's the colour, Jim?
Quickly.
Go hard. Finish your guard, get tight. Nice, there we go.
So this guy here is a Lucette prop. So he found himself on the edge, so he went to clean, and when we reload it, his role for me becomes, he goes back to what he's good at, bump runner. So he tries to work more to the 15s, go to the 9s, look for opportunities to bump and create momentum. So then he obviously.
Perfect. 2 more, then we're done.
So the 10 could use him, the 9 could use him, but he effectively stopping somebody. And we're getting the ball into the right guy's hands. So often when we're trying to stretch it like that, the picture we want to show them is that it's either going to be just classic hands because we've got the numbers, or we need to stop some defenders to hold the space out wide. And sometimes it's 4-on-4 and we need to carry, which we obviously look to try to get the ball into Clerky. Yeah, he's more of a carrier as well, so he often can get the ball. They decided to hit Juma. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. It's short and sweet this morning, so I would like for us to watch the test match a little bit later as well, just to try and see if you spot those guys in those kind of roles, and kind of in that free flow game, just going to what they're good at and what is needed within that attacking structure. I'll quickly play this clip for you. I did play it yesterday, but there's some good things in here as well.
time. That's the 22-metre line, All Black territory, as Brad Weber gets it away for Leonard Brown. Now Savia. Here again for Weber. Feeds it up to Scott Barrett. Now Laulala. Weber once more. Feeds it off to Barrett. Drops a lovely kick in.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to play that one. Yeah.
Just try it one more time.
One more time, okay. Hit me, baby, one more time.
Here under.
And I know we can say okay, yeah. So I know we can share that, say that they are this Australia, New Zealand, and yeah, they world class. We obviously know that, but I do think if we can practice these things where we know, it's almost like body cues as well. When the 9 picks up, what do I do? Often I see at schoolboy rugby, you see this boy, he's running, he's taking an angle, he's running across the field, he's looking for somebody to come back on a switch, but nobody is coming back on a switch. And I think those are the kind of things we need to spend a lot of time on, where it's like, there's a kind of a dance to it, if that makes sense. If somebody's running a cross line for me, then obviously I'm looking to switch. If somebody's holding onto the ball, I've got to come to their shoulder. So those kind of things should be coached, so it becomes second nature, and forms part of your synergy in your attack. When I'm running to the ball, to the line, I know somebody's coming on a hard line on my shoulder, and that gives me the confidence to do those kind of things. I think we need to spend time on creating that language, that body language, that when we're playing our little games and those kind of things. When 9 picks up, what is your role? When he runs to the line, what is your role? And I think you'll get some nice flow in your attack from that. I think what stutters the attack sometimes is the uncertainty of what to do. If that makes sense.
Thanks, Clinton. I have a 2-part question. My first is, when you pick your team, do you specifically select the team where you say, listen, I'm looking for 2 players that has to be bump runners, I'm looking for at least 2 strikers in the team, I'm looking for at least two punch runners or whatever? Do you select them that way, or do you pick your 15 best guys and you teach them that role?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we've got to we're in a position where we've got to pick our best 15, and naturally those guys kind of are those kind of players. So your props or your tight 5, but we often have a 5 skinny lock who we might leave on the edge, and then you'll have a fat 4 lock that you said, Lucio, I want you, this is the kind of role I want you to play. Your striker might be somebody that's a number 8, whatever the case might be. But for us, if we play Zane Davids at 12, or we play him at 8, or play him at 6, it doesn't really matter. But his role doesn't really change because of his characteristic as a player, his DNA. So where you put them is what makes the difference. But yeah, for us, we're literally looking, like for me now, if I was coaching the Springboks, I'd be looking to look for a creator a bit more, maybe bring Goosen and play part of the 12, whatever the situation might be. But that's when you've got the best to pick from. But for us at the schoolboy level, it's literally a case of we got to pick our best 15 players, and those roles kind of like become part of them.
Awesome, thanks. Ivan, you have a question?
So again, within the school system, how closely do you work with your second team? How closely do you work with your under 16As? So you get a continuity of language. I know that many schools spend a lot of time talking about a school system which they want. Are you expecting under 14As to have the same sort of terminology, that sort of thing, Any comments?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we work very closely with the second team, and on Mondays we even bring the third team guys onto the main field because there are a lot of good rugby players in our third team that are grade 11. So when the guys are doing call it flush out and whatever, we put the guys through the same little drills, but obviously in their first team, second team, third team group. But the first team coach and us, whoever is there, are coaching third team players on the field, and they're doing the same drills as the first team, and it just builds a bit of unity and yeah, your contingency through the age groups. So yeah, I enforce it at school because I often see guys going, this is my little 18, my 15 boys, and I only look after them. And we know, we spoke about it yesterday with Hein and the culture, we care about everybody. So on a Monday, you'll see under 14, A, B, C, D, all practice together, but in their groups. So the A side, the B side, so it'll be 15 in a little station. One is doing tackle technique, one is doing handling, one is playing a game, whatever the thing is. But the A side coach is coaching the D side player, and the D side coach is coaching the A side player. So we're getting a lot of like synergy and that kind of thing. The language is there, it's available. How much of it you use depends on your skill. So we do have the same kind of the red and the orange and the rocket and the red and the, you know, those kind of things. But yeah, it's how much of it you can use. So our kicking lingo might be the same because it's quite standard. But yeah, so we're trying to push that through, but it's not very prescriptive in terms of I want my under 14s to now do this. You know, the Hein mentioned yesterday about the school having to play the same kind of style. Where, like I said, I agree with 100% with that in the sense that the fundamentals must be there, but how your game plan or your strategy for the game evolves might be different. But for me, it's more about the philosophy around a calling system and our willingness to play from deep, be brave, ask the questions when there are space. If they've got 4 back, if Bishop's is putting 4 back, why should I kick the ball? So then we got to make sure that we play. So that's kind of more about a philosophy kind of thing. But on a 14A, B, C, D together on a Monday, when they get to Wednesday, it's the A and Bs together. So then they line out contest, whatever they want to do, run a bit of shadow. Sometimes we run out the 16s and 15s on the A field in the shadow together on a Wednesday as well. Just for us, I don't like to be separate. It makes my job easier when we're all on the same page. I mean, for years, I think Hein, it might be a little bit more difficult for Hein, but for us, in the pre-season with my under 14s and 15s in the Rugby Ready, we training on the main field. Many years they didn't allow that because it was holy ground. So for me, it's about family, and if they're part of the family, they're allowed on the ground, you know. So it's difficult to break those kind of things down, but we're seeing some nice reward for it.
Clinton, before I hand over to Hein, I see he has a question. I just wanted to ask, these systems and drills, you're obviously teaching them these things during the pre-season or the post-season, right? I don't think you spend too much time teaching that during in-season. So I just wanted to ask, in general, how much time do you allow for the boys to get used to these things during pre-season, and then how much time in general would you spend on it in season?
Yeah, this year I actually have done timings 2 or 3 years ago where I've got all the time for every little drill that you did. I'm quite prescriptive to the coaches in terms of how I want to see the warm up, and that's where they run the mechanics. In the preseason, like we start most probably in February with under 14s and 15s, and so they'll have their summer sport on the Monday and Wednesday, so Tuesdays and Thursdays we'll do 25 minutes pole gym, then agility, and then they'll be with me and the other coaches, and we do tennis ball drills, and we'll do that for about 3-4 weeks. And then when we've got the alignment right and their hands and their body position and those kind of things, then we start adding the red shape or the rocket shape and then we run that for another month and a half. But yeah, so it's like baking a cake, and that's why I said with Laurie Mains, that's what I learned a lot. You work on the mechanics first, get the mechanics sorted, and then you add the shape to it. And then once you get that, then you can see, okay, well, this is why we're doing it, and this is why it, this is why I've got to stand in a certain way. This is why I've got to approach the ball in a certain way. And then it just makes the coaching a little bit easier as we go forward.
Yeah, because I also just want to make sure the picture I have in my head makes sense. So what I would like to do is, what I'm thinking now is, when I start with the preseason, I'll take a session and only break it up into 3 parts, and then I'll spend like a whole 20 minutes with the under 14s, and all they're doing is they're just practicing these positions. And then when we get maybe into in season on a Tuesday, when we do our 4 stations, that would only be one of the stations. So then they get 7 minutes in a week to just reinforce that drill. But basically the question I wanted to ask is, do you think that's enough, or should I spend a bit more time on it, especially under 14 when they're doing this for the first time?
I think the your individual skills are so important. Your basic fundamental skills, your catch, pass, tackle, body position and the carry, those kind of things and agility. So we normally break into like I said on a Monday, about four stations, and about 15 minutes in the station, because as much as you want repetition, you also want correct repetition. So quality. I'm a firm believer in, so you don't want to stop too often, but once they get it right, you stop less and less. But you want to be driving those things more than you're driving getting the shape right. So
just to make sure that we have enough time to get ready for the All Black game, Hein, I think you're going to be the last one.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something here. Clint, when you spoke about the language, I'm also a firm believer that the language is available, but I wanna expose players over the 5 years at the school to as many coaches as we can, and to as many different types of languages we can. So
yes.
So that he gets used to different voices and different things, but it's coaching the philosophy, and that's what I like. It's coaching the philosophy and the thing. The second thing was we call those. We got 6-minute blocks at the start of every session. It's a 6-minute block with a 1 minute in between, and there's 4 blocks: attack, defense, breakdown, and one that we need things attention. So that might be anything that we want, and we've got a philosophy that in that 6 minutes block, we're not here for entertainment. We're not here. It's not a circus. We pick 3 drills, and repeat those 3 drills that we want to get the best outcome and repetition from in that 6 minutes. And we do those 3 times a week, 6 minutes. And the return for us on that this year alone, especially in the disrupted season that we had, was immense. Because it's basic skills. It's catch, pass, beating your man, little drills you did, but it's 6 minutes, high intensity. We call them primers. The guys call them primers. Nice. So it primes us for what's coming. Nice. And it works like a bomb. But so the players know, if they come to training, they know already, okay, we're going to do this drill, and then we just go, and it works like a bomb.
I think sometimes we want to be like I said, too fancy, and we've got too many drills, but it's just good for the guys to come and if it's a basic, they understand it, and you do it time after time. I mean, it takes time to build good mechanics. But you've got to repeat it in the week, like you're doing it 3 times a week, and if the guys go there and they can know, and it becomes a second nature, and that's what you want. And I think there's some big value in that. I often see guys every week, they want a new coaching thing, new little drill, but they're not fixing anything, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, Clinton. Thank you very much again for a high quality presentation. I really like how you bring us the coaching drills to show how you implement those things. I think that's very important, and that's what the coaches really need. It's all good to see it in a clip, but then how do I take it to my players? So thank you very much for that.
It will be great. It would be great for us to on that group share those drills, because a good quality drill that it's got decision making in it, or just like behind there in terms of high intensity, that's a basic thing that you can share with your coaches. It'll be amazing. You know, there's
Definitely, yeah. Guys, feel free to share your stuff there on the group. That's why it's there.